Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Daly. I spent 20 years with United Press International, most of it with the old UPI radio network. And my favorite assignment was going on the road producing and hosting American Montage. It was an hour-long weekly program. Now here's an edited version of one of those shows. Hi, everybody. We're on the road again, this time again in suburban Dallas, Texas. You know, there are a lot of companies out there with people's names attached to it, brand names even, such as Betty Crocker. Was there a Betty Crocker? Uncle Ben. Well, there was kind of an Uncle Ben. There was, of course, a Colonel Sanders, and there is a Dr. Pearle of Pearle Vision. Stanley C. Pearle still hangs out at one of his branch offices in Dallas. I sat down with Dr. Pearle to talk about just how optometry has changed since the 1940s when he started in it and today. He says the big change is style and the availability of good-looking frames.
Well, I can remember back in the 40s and 50s where when I first came out of optometry school, we used to maybe have 10 or 15 styles that we would show ladies, and we'd maybe have 5 that would show men, and they were odd, god-awful looking things. But today, it's a pleasure to look around, as you'll see when you see this particular office, and most any optical office. We have beautiful stuff, and actually people look better in glasses today than look without them in many cases. So it's a dramatic development in our field, which we're very happy about.
You know, one of the things I've done with the last pair of glasses is to get the ones which have the springs in the hinges. Every other pair of glasses I've had problems where the wings fit. But this little shock absorber effect, it's the smartest thing I think they ever did.
Well, it's like any other field. The technical changes, just as well as the stylish changes, have come into play, and you have people looking for these spring hinges, which you're referring to, and you have the people looking for better types of lenses, a progressive lens. So there's been a tremendous technical change in the optical field, too, just as there has been in other fields, and it's good.
When did all of this fashion stuff start? You said that your earliest experiences were back in the 40s. Was it the 50s, the 60s? Can you see a certain point at which this all started to take off, or was it a slow change in optometry?
It was kind of a slow change. I would say the last 20, 25 years, and I think it happened when the stylists and the people involved in style began to look at the optical field and say, look, we can get the style people into this field the same as they are into dresses and clothes. And once they came into the field and brought all the name Bill Blass and all those fancy style names, that they came into the field, and they made a lot of money out of it, and it's been very successful because they designed these beautiful frames. So it happened, I would say, to answer your question, about 20 years ago, slow. But now it's fast. I tell you, look at the ads in the not only optical journals, but just in the advertising. It's tremendous, the beautiful styles that you see.
Dr. Stanley C. Pearle is, of course, legendary in the world of optometry, but how did his career get started?
I was originally from Pennsylvania, and I went to school in Chicago. Those were kind of tough days all through the late 30s, and I scrambled a lot and got out of optometry school. And then I took the examination board in Philadelphia in 1940, and they made you wait 2 months, 60 days before they would tell you whether you passed or not. So a friend said to me, Stan, he says, let's go down to Texas. He said, we'll get on a train and we'll get down there, and it's a 3-day exam in Texas, and they tell you the next day whether you pass or not. I said, well, that sounds pretty good. So I scrambled together, I think it was $60 or $80, and we got on the train, came to Texas, and that's how I ended up in Texas in 1940. Never went back to Pennsylvania. I did pass my exam there, but I stayed in Texas. It's funny how things like that. I was 21, 22 years old, and amazing how life takes turns in those days.
Well, see, now you wouldn't uproot yourself like that, but that's the perfect, that's when you're supposed to do something exciting.
Well, I did. Not only came down to Texas, which it made my life here, but I happened to marry my bride. We were in the same high school class in Pittsburgh, and I brought her down about less than a year after I got to Texas, and we were married in Dallas in 1940. We've been very, very fortunate and blessed. So those are some great things that happened to me. Of course, that was probably the greatest thing that happened, meeting the right woman, and it was just we've been so blessed that way. But the optical business has been quite fascinating, and I think you chose a good idea to talk about. I'm sort of a marketing type person. It seems to me me if dentists could somehow make a big deal out of beautiful teeth and the importance of dentistry and do a little more marketing, they would probably do better, you know. Of course, what's happened to dentistry is with the new what do they use to prevent the
fluoride and everything?
Fluoride now that's already stopped decays and all that. But anyhow, they do have a problem, and I bet they'd be very fortunate if they had a product like glasses to market.
Well, let's move ahead a little bit. Obviously, your name is extremely well known around the country. There's a new wave of television commercials, and you are there in a way. And I'm not saying this because you're certainly not his age when he was doing it. It reminds me a lot of the technique that Kentucky Fried Chicken was using. That here's Colonel Sanders. You see him. I do not like the new commercials with this fellow pretending to be Colonel Sanders, but I really like the idea that when we see you on television, it's not someone playing Dr. Pearle. There really is a Dr. Pearle.
Well, I hear that all the time, and people tell me that reaction too. What we hope, and so far it's been proven to be pretty successful because people like the idea that we started with a good philosophy, and there is an optometrist who was the founder of our organization. But sometimes I think about the Colonel Sanders ads, and of course he's dead, but they're trying to bring him back to life with this. I hope it doesn't happen to me. I'm still alive, of course, but we think maybe, we hope that our campaign can be as successful as the Dave Thomas campaign for Wendy's. It's worked well, and our people are just all excited about it. I never thought it would be that great a campaign, but it's turned out to be a fantastic campaign. Have the ultraviolet rays that are primarily from the sun are very dangerous. They can burn the back part of the eye, which is called the retina, which is like the film of the eye, and terrible damage can occur not only in youngsters but in adults. And people are not aware of the fact that they should be careful. And people are much more aware today than used to be, to answer your question.
You and I both have blue eyes, and I have always been the kind of person who's been very much a night person.
Well, light-colored eyes are even more sensitive. There's less pigment in the eye, but everybody should be aware of it. Cataracts developed from sun has been established without any question. They're just dangerous. So particularly with light skin like you have, and I have blue eyes, they get a little darker as I get older, but they used to be light like yours when I was a little younger. You have to be more careful. When talking about ultraviolet, we have a program in the Pearle Vision System which we try to get people to take advantage of. We call it a spec check. We invite people to come in as a complimentary service, to come in, have their glasses cleaned and adjusted. You know, people take their cars by and get it oiled, but they don't take their glasses by, and they get dirty and filthy. We invite people to come in, have the glasses cleaned and checked, new screws put in, adjusted, and also to have a check of their lenses to see how well they're protected against ultraviolet. We have a machine that can detect that, and it's a complimentary service, and we would encourage people to go into any Pearle office. It's a complimentary service. We're delighted to do it. So it is important.
Now, I notice you're not wearing glasses, and it doesn't look as if you're wearing contacts. I really think for the sake of the company, you should get some dummy glasses.
Well, I wear them at times. I certainly need them for reading, and I use them for distance in some degrees. My distance vision happens to be good, but I do have reading glasses. Today, contact lenses are much easier to wear today than they used to be, and so it's a big thing, and we certainly have them in our offices.
About what age do most people begin to see their prescriptions start changing more rapidly, or is that such a widespread thing among people that there's no average? In my case, I was about 35, and then at that point I had to have my prescription changed more often.
Well, the key changes are during the teens, when you get a lot of youngsters develop nearsightedness or myopia, as we call it, and normally it starts at the early teens and develops fairly rapidly sometimes through the teens. So that's a key place. It's a good idea to have an eye examination no matter what age, every year or two at the latest. But the years where they're more changeable are teens is very keen, and the other age is in the 40s. It's very, very common in a perfectly normal eye at the early 40s to begin having a reading problem. And either you start...
your arms get too short.
You either get glasses or get longer arms, and it's kind of easy to get glasses. So that's a very common age. And after 40s, generally the reading prescription changes every couple of years. So those are the key points. I'd say teenage is a big area, and also 40s and 50s reading changes. Those are two areas where eyes do change rather rapidly.
My special thanks to Dr. Stanley C. Pearle and his staff for the great hospitality, and to Dr. Pearle for the glasses he fitted for me. And you can see in the photo he may be conscientious about his craft, but he's a really funny guy. And there you have it, another edited episode of one of the American Montage programs prepared for the UPI radio network back in the 1980s and 90s. I'm Dennis Daly. Thanks for listening. Thanks for going with me this week. And check YouTube for more American Montage programs.